Just to remind you that the underpinning philosophy of all of this is trying to find what adds value, add more value to patients. And everything that we're doing is really trying to hone down to, is it adding value to patients? Can we take away the stuff that isn't adding value to patients and therefore releasing resource that could then be adding more value? And to do all of that, we need to make processes and the system work well and have good flow for the system, which we've talked about last time. Okay. The program itself split over 5 stages. The first of those stages I'll go through a little bit in a moment, but was developing a set of principles, which we did at sort of the beginning of last year, or this year actually, February 2018. It feels like a longer than that in terms of time. We went in March and April. We started a high-level design pathway, which we had week-long workshops focused on access, assessment, treatment and discharge. And now we're in detailed design, which we're looking to run all the way up to the end of this financial year, when we're hoping to have a full sort of workforce model, which we can then test in our stage 4 and make sure that is it going to be financially affordable, is it going to be holding up to the likely demands, is it something that we can commit to. And thereafter, across the remaining years of our programme, a phased implementation. We are focused on everyone that's using mental health and learning disability services, so we've got that sort of wide remit. We had 4 week-long workshops. We had about 84 people participate in those workshops, 48 feed-in sessions with a range of other staff and service users and carers that got involved in those, putting their views to all of the discussion happening around access, assessment, treatment and discharge. And we had about 207 people respond online. And together, out of those 4 weeks, there's about 50 features that were identified. And so when thinking about stage 3, we've had to take those 50 features and sort of repackage them together again into bits of work. And it's largely come down the same sort of framing that we had in stage 2, in the form of a treatment, focus, assessment, access and discharge, but now really getting into detail. So we started off, and I'll come back to some of the detail around this in a moment, but into the treatment phase. So exactly what is the treatment that we need to be offering, and what's the workforce that we're going to need to do it. And so this is running up to the end of November of this year. And we want to have a focus on assessment in December, and describe that assessment process, which in part will be informed by treatment, which is why we started that one really in the programme. And then in January, talk about that access point, starting to really describe in detailed design what that access point looks like, what workforce we needed to run it. And then head into anything remaining around discharge, given that that will also be described in some of these other features, so that would be tidying it up at the end. Alongside all of those things, there's a whole range of other things that are coming out as well. And they range from peer support workers, which is a nationally recognised role. Most organisations in mental health seem to have peer support workers, more peer support workers than we do, in the magnitudes of 50 or so staff in many of those organisations. And so we're a bit behind in terms of having peer support workers here in LPT. It's been described through those 4 week-long workshops, and it's something that we need to understand our model and start recruiting people into. And then there's various other things that we need to be designing, so things like how we're collaborating with social care better, how we can collaborate in primary care, and a range of other supporting things like buildings and other infrastructures. So that's a kind of overarching frame, and this is all to try and be completed by March 2019. Some of these bits of work will carry on in terms of they'll be part of implementation, they'll be fixing things in place. Not everything here will need to be completed to get a design, to get a workforce model together, to be able to test out a financial model and sort of demand. So that's really where we need to be by the end of the year. So just a bit about the phase of work we're in at the moment. So we're in stage 3, but we're now doing treatment. So up to the end of November, which might creep in, because I know that the CQC will be in November, so that might delay us a little bit, but not by too much, hopefully. Maybe a week, I think, in our programme planning. But effectively, in our treatment phase, the main things that are being focused on at the moment is having the overarching philosophy of recovery involved in our work. And we don't have enough time to explore all of the ins and outs of that, but we tried to bring together the different thinking on this, so whether that's asset-based community development, Thrive, which is used in children's services, recovery, which is largely used in adult services, and reablement, which is largely used in social care, brought together those philosophies that each of these different areas have been talking to for some time, and looked at where they join up and where they differ. And there's more in common than there isn't. So what we try to do is understand what that commonality is, and then describing that in this bit of work, and want to see that brought to life in all of the detailed design that we've got, so that we really are bringing to life that kind of recovery focus. Intervention pathways, the mainstay of the treatment. So what should people expect to have? How much of of those things should they have in terms of interventions? And ultimately, what's the right skilled staff to do the different bits? And so, same reason that I'm not there today is that we've got lots and lots of different workshop time, looking at different elements, different ones of these pathways, and these are the lists there. So autism, psychosis, dementia, ADHD, anxiety, depression, personality disorder, eating disorders, bipolar, other organic conditions, which is a bit of an umbrella term, LD pathways, which are wider than the mental health, so there's lots of non-mental health ones in learning disability services, and complex physical along with the mental health. So we've got, and have been having workshops, so we've had the first run of workshops on all of these already happened, and the beginnings of pathways developed, and now we're fleshing that out into something that can then go out for consultation and make sure that all staff get involved in it. Alongside those sort of clinical pathways, it's important to recognise there's lots of other needs, whether that's things like financial needs that people might have, or the wider social or specialist education, or many others. Each one of those requires something, whether that's signposting, whether that's something specific things that we might want to do. And at the moment, all teams do it slightly differently. All of them have to have local knowledge and understanding of what to do. And so there's a real benefit in making that more standardised and the clearer processes around all of these, both to help us ensure that we are doing something to support people's needs, those sort of wider needs, wider the clinical needs, and also helping staff to be able to do that easier and quicker. And we've had a workshop on crisis as well. Crisis services for all ages, and there's already some outputs from that, which includes having an all-age beginning to that crisis pathway, where irrespective of age or specialty, you'll be able to get through to some initial crisis support, and then after that initial crisis support, where hopefully you've got an initial plan to help somebody in their immediate need, they'll get more specialist assessment and help thereafter and home treatment that's lined up to meet their particular specialist need. And so that sort of crisis model has come out of a recent workshop which happened 12th to the 14th of September. Just a couple of things to really summarise, I suppose, is that we've been really lucky and grateful for the level of involvement of our staff in the process so far. We've had lots of different people, and some of these pictures show some of the individuals that have been involved so far. But it's complicated. It's a big bit of work. This it's really complex. There's lots and lots of different people that use our services with all sorts of different needs and all sorts of different expertise that's brought to it. And that makes both thinking it through and designing it a real challenge. The beauty of having all of these different people together, sometimes you never talk to each other or never get an opportunity to work together, brings through to fruition a lot of different ideas that haven't been shared together up to this point, which is really moving it forward. Alongside the all of that design and bringing people together, and also informing that design, is data, and all the way through the programme from the beginning to this point, there's been an enormous amount of effort to try and collect as much information as possible and analyse as much information as possible to try and understand both the current state of how things are at the moment in the form of data, and this is some of the data that's come out. The analysis of how people move through the system, which is the cohort mapping that we were undertaking, and observing so what is occupying people's time at the moment that might not be value adding, that if we did something slightly differently could release time and be able to increase clinical activity. And so it's really hard, as you would have heard in other contexts, data isn't always perfectly correct, and therefore there's been a lot of work to try and cleanse that data, and we're having to still work through it with a lot of different teams to make sure there's a confidence level so that we're definitely getting the right messages from it. But it's another key component of what we're doing at the moment, and is starting to form up, and we're going out to teams as we speak to try and talk to them about some of the findings that it's showing, some of the things that we can see in the system that's happening at the moment that in our new model we're hoping to change. I'd like to finally say, if I may, that as you know, but it's difficult sometimes when I'm sort of in front of the camera to reflect that this is really a team effort, and there's lots of people who have been involved in the work so far, and I think we've achieved an enormous amount within a year. Hopefully you can agree, but it comes down to a lot of people working very hard, well beyond themselves, to be honest, which I'm grateful for and I'm thankful for. So thank you, hopefully that's been useful, and I'll hopefully see you soon.